everyone, I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to The Melissa Made Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. Hello, you guys, and welcome to the Melissa Made Show. And as always, if you happen to catch one of my stories where I talked about that I was getting ready to get on a podcast and I was going to talk with a pain management specialist, I'm really excited about this. You guys know, Mr. Olderman, Rick, I hope he's okay with me calling him that, will learn that I have, my husband and I have been together 30 something years. He's into extreme sports. He's broken every bone. He's had every major surgery there is. He lives with chronic pain. And not only that, but most of you guys also know that with the birth defects that I have, that I also have chronic pain. So for me, I told Rick, I'm going to be a student today. I am so excited to hear from him. You guys, he's an expert in this area, and he's going to share with us just some really powerful nuggets for you if you do struggle with pain, or if you have loved ones like I do that do as well. So let me give him a proper introduction, and we are going to dive into this. And if we're lucky, he's going to pull out his little skeleton friend. He's going to show us. So I encourage you, if you can, to watch this video. If you can't listen, if you can do more than just listen to the audio, because I think the video will be very helpful. Rick Olderman is a sport and orthopedic physical therapist with more than 25 years experience that specializes in helping with people with chronic pain experience a pain-free life. Now, after struggling to help his patients and having chronic pain himself, he realized that standard physical therapy education left him unprepared to truly help people with chronic pain or nagging injuries. Now, as a result, Rick has spent the last 20 years studying and experimenting with movements and habits that cause pain. Rick has written the popular Fixing You series of books to help people heal their bodies. And more recently, Rick has created downloadable videos that are home programs to help people solve pain from their head to their toe. Now, this program includes his pioneering approach that has helped solve hundreds of cases of chronic pain at his clinic for the last 10 years. Now, Rick is one of the top professionals in the US when it comes to understanding reoccurring injuries and chronic musculoskeletal pain. Now, he wants to enhance the quality of life by helping people fix their pain once and for all. Doesn't that sound nice? Now, Rick's newest book, Solving the Pain Puzzle, is now out on Amazon. Rick, that's impressive. It's very impressive. And you know what? This is kind of a pretty serious topic, and obviously legitimately life-changing. And so before we get into all of the serious stuff, I have just a silly question to ask you, just so kind of people get to know you on a more personal level. You ready for it?
Sure.
Okay, so if you were to sit down and have, me being a nutritionist and being in the nutrition field, I have to ask you, if you were just to sit down and watch your favorite movie and have just something in front of you to eat, what would it be?
Okay, well, I can answer that in two ways. One is I just recently discovered that my cholesterol was too high. So I've been on a diet to reduce it. And in a month and a half, I reduced my cholesterol by 28%.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't know what it is now, but if based on my cholesterol friendly diet, what I would choose to eat is carrots and hummus.
Ooh, good pick.
Prior to my cholesterol free diet, I would eat my wife's delicious baked goods because she's a chef and a very good baker.
Oh,
and that's actually why I had to go on my cholesterol diet.
Well, that is challenging, and good for you for being able to, start to reverse the higher cholesterol, knowing that you probably still have all of that amazing stuff around you all the time, but making that decision to make that positive change. Well, see, I love that. That shows that tenacity and that determination. Okay, so I do really want to dive into this because, like I said at the very beginning, both my husband and I are, when we wake up in the morning, we look hilarious. We look like the 80 and 90-year-old person shuffling to the bathroom because there's just that living with pain. So me as a student today, and also going to be very interested in taking what I learned from you in the future. I would love to know just kind of what got you started in this field. Was there any kind of situation or family or anything that got you interested in the physical therapy?
Well, you know what? I grew up on a farm in Ohio, and I had never even heard of physical therapy before. I was in my late 20s. So when I studied, first I wanted to become a doctor in college, and I quickly realized that I was not cut out to do that. And so I graduated with a science teaching degree and then traveled around the world for several years. And when I came back, I just didn't know what to do. And someone had just mentioned off the cuff about physical therapy. I'm just like, what's that? So I just investigated it. It just seemed magical and perfect for me. So that's when I went into PT school.
Cool. Okay. So, and this might be a silly question, but I think it's really great because I'm sure you'll have a definition for it. What is the difference between somebody that has pain and versus somebody that has chronic pain? How would you define the two besides or is it as simple as just saying somebody who has pain over and over again?
Well, that's a really astute question because that's exactly how I think of it. So someone in their brilliance identified acute pain as anything less than 3 months and chronic pain as anything more than 3 months.
Okay.
Why it's a 3-month cutoff? I have no idea. So if you had pain for 2 months and 3 weeks, I'm sorry, you do not yet have chronic pain, and therefore none of this information applies. Absolutely wrong. So what I've really come to realize, Melissa, is that chronic pain is just a recurring acute condition that hasn't been resolved yet. And when you resolve that, pain goes away very quickly. I don't care whether you've had chronic pain for 20 years or 20 days. It'll go away very quickly if you solve that issue.
I gotcha. I love that. 3 months, huh? Okay. Well, so you obviously went to school and started, air quotes, standard practice, and then found out that just, wasn't enough for you in the way that you wanted to deeply care for your patients. Can you share a little bit with, what you were trying in the past that wasn't working for you that made you decide to kind of go this path and really research ways to help people live pain-free?
Oh, sure. It's not that it wasn't enough for me. It wasn't enough for my patients. I was a tremendous failure as a physical therapist, using the information I got from PT school for chronic pain patients. So I was really successful with acute issues, post-surgical, pre-surgical, strains, tears, things like that. But anything that came to chronic pain, it was just like a whole nother animal altogether. And so I was a failure. I went into a deep depression for years because of it. And I thought about quitting physical therapy because I just wasn't good. And then I moved to Denver. This was at a small rural clinic. So I was one of the 2 physical therapists in town. Then I moved to Denver and worked at an elite health club downtown. And my schedule was instantly filled with all of these 20 to 70-year-olds, well-to-do, had been to all of these elite medical practitioners and still had pain. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's not just me. We as in medicine in general are failing people with chronic pain conditions. And that's what kind of, I realized that I just got to, if I either have to quit physical therapy or I have to figure this out, because I can't be a physical therapist that doesn't know how to solve chronic pain,
Right.
And so that's what led me on this road.
I gotcha. So you, we had mentioned before that you had done some, experimenting. Can you elaborate on the types of experiments that you did, to help get you to the practice that you have today?
Oh gosh, I mean, in medicine, everything is experiments, right? So really, I intuitively felt that chronic pain must have something to do with how we're using our bodies. And so when I thought back to, but we're not taught this in PT school, this type of thinking. But I remembered that there is one physical therapy professor, Dr. Shirley Sahrmann out of Washington University in St. Louis, who wrote a couple of textbooks and taught seminars about movement impairment syndromes. And so I read her textbooks several times, took all of her courses, and that kind of, it was like coming home. It was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for, right? And then the next series of patients started knocking on my door who didn't respond to just biomechanical corrections. And so I then learned about fascia and through Thomas Meyer's work, and he identified these superhighways of fascia that are running through our bodies from head to toe. And so that helped me look further away from where pain was to see that, oh, these other tissues could be feeding this pain too. And then the next tier of patients started knocking on my door, and these people seemed to have a battery that was supercharging their bodies to be in these painful patterns of movement. And that's when I discovered Thomas Hanna's work, and his focus was neurological basis of pain. And so the fascinating thing, Melissa, is that all three of them, Thomas Hanna, Dr. Shirley Sahrmann, and Thomas Myers, identified the same three patterns of problems causing almost all people's spinal pain.
Wow.
They call them different things. They didn't know of each other at all. And they were all in three different areas of research. And when I put that last piece together, I was just like, the explosion went off. And so what I've been doing is understanding not only that those three patterns exist, but what are we doing that's creating these three patterns of issues? And that's where my focus has been these last 20 years.
I would love to get into those, but real fast for my audience, can you explain what fascia is?
Sure. Fascia is connective tissue. And so what that means is basically it's the glue that holds everything together. It supports our viscera, our nerves, our blood vessels. It connects muscle to muscle, muscle to bone. And so it's the thing that, that's, you know, if you were to strip away all organs and nerves and everything, fascia would only be left, and your body would look almost exactly the same as it does without, you know, with those structures too. It is so pervasive, it even goes down into a cellular level. So it is just the glue and a web of network. And so there are areas in our body that have thicker fascia than others, like our thoracolumbar fascia in our back. That's a thick area. The IT band, the plantar fascia on the bottom of our foot. Those are like sheets of fascia, but then we also have web-like types of fascia too.
So, I mean, it's, I'm putting the two and two together. You mentioned, you know, thicker and more fascia in the areas that you mentioned, the back, you know, your in your hip area and on your feet. That's where a lot of chronic pain is. So obviously, because for me, when I think pain, I think joint, you know, that literally like my cartilage is wearing out, or, you know, I've got muscle, but it obviously goes way deeper than that. And you mentioned three things that you had really learned. Is this part of the root cause that you've, you know, kind of dove into helping people instead of just, you know, like I told you with nutrition, you can kind of help somebody mask the symptoms, or you can really get down to the reason that is happening, which is obviously what, you know, what your specialty is these three things that I'm going to ask you to share, is that, you know, diving into that root cause.
Yeah, so think of the fascia as the vehicle that carries the problem to the source of pain, all right? So the fascia isn't the problem. The fascia tension is the problem. And so how we use our body is creating the tension that's driving the pain. The fascia is just how it's all linked together in our body. So in and of itself, it's not necessarily the problem. It's what you're doing that's causing the fascia to be tense that is the problem.
Okay. And
does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm being very elementary here, but I'm so curious. Do you repair fascia? Or not necessarily the fascia itself? That's not like the area that you're working toward with the physical therapy and the pain management. Is it particularly with the fascia, or is the fascia just something that is a part of what you have to do with your movements and stuff to fix the pain?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So I don't repair the fascia. So I change how you are undermining your fascia.
Okay.
So for instance, if we cut our finger, it heals naturally. If we break a bone, it mends. So we have all the elements internally that will heal our tissues. So what we have to do is eliminate the barriers to that healing. And that's what I do from a musculoskeletal standpoint.
Gotcha.
So if there is a fascial issue, then that issue, your body can heal itself if we can remove the barrier that's causing the fascial issue, or the joint issue, or the musculoskeletal, or the muscular issue, whatever that might be. There are these obstacles that we've put in place that are preventing this healing from happening. That's why we have chronic pain. So yes, my approach, it doesn't single out fascia as the thing to solve. That's just part of our body. So it is being solved by fixing how we use our body.
Okay, that makes sense. So I went into your Instagram and I was just kind of looking at all the things that you talk about. And from a personal perspective, I just have a ton of questions for you because I've never sat down and talked with a physical therapist. We were in a car accident a long time ago and were asked to see one. We saw physical therapists for a little while. Such great people, such good conversationalists. And then my husband, every time he breaks something, he's asked to do PT, and it's fascinating work and such important work. But there's some things that, because I don't understand it very well, I'm always like, I wonder if that really works. And so first and foremost, I want to ask you about kinesiology tape.
Mm-hmm.
It was very popular there for a while before the pandemic. And when I used to teach in a gym, I would see people with it all the time. And I thought it was cool. I mean, it's almost like the rubber wristbands you had as a kid, or tattoos and stuff like that. But in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, can tape really help? And so I would love your take on tape.
Well, once again, Melissa, you're right on target with your question. So I've had the same question, and I use tape extensively in my program, but I do not use kinesio tape.
Okay.
Because the tape, what I'm trying to change with tape in my program are fundamental mechanical problems in the body, often involving joints that are weight bearing. That kinesio tape is elastic. It can't change how the joint is moving or support the joint in a way that's meaningful to remove pain. I use a different kind of tape called cover roll stretch and leukotape P together. Okay. And so that's a very strong tape. And for instance, I use it to, tape a flat foot up. And so you need a very strong tape to be able to do that. And kinesio tape can't do that. Now, kinesio tape is good for things that don't need to be moved or held or supported significantly. Okay. So I think of kinesio tape as something to help maybe guide a movement or nudge you in the right direction for a movement, but it's not supporting the joint and protecting it while it's moving. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. So talking about supporting a joint, can you share with us kind of what you see as the key culprit of joint pain for most people when they're experiencing that joint pain? Is there something that you see happens more often than not that could be the reason that they're having that joint pain, whether it's a specific body part or in general?
Yeah, the most common pain that most people have is back pain. So do you mind if I take you through an experiment with this?
I love it. Love it.
Okay. So, all right. So basically, anyone who has back pain, do this test because you're going to understand. Remember those 3 patterns that I mentioned earlier? We're going to identify whether one of these patterns is happening in you. Okay. And then I'll show you what you're doing that's causing it. Okay. So everyone at home, if you have back pain, please do this test, because if you just listen to what I'm saying, it'll sound like it makes sense, and then you'll forget it 5 minutes later. But if you actually do the test, you're going to feel the truth in your body. All right. So let's have everyone lie down on the floor with your legs straight. And if you can't get down on the floor, then lie down on the couch or on your bed. But whatever the case, I want your legs straight. And I say the floor initially because the firmer the surface, the more feedback you'll get into your body about what's going on with your body. But wherever you are, go ahead and lie down on your back with your legs straight. Now you can put your hand underneath your low back if you like, and feel the space between your low back and the floor. And what I want you to do is just get a general sense of, hey, does this feel good for my back or does it feel bad for my back? Easy question. Okay, now you've been there for about 30 seconds. So now bend your knees so your feet are flat on the floor. And if your back doesn't feel any better like that, go ahead and hug your knees to your chest. All right. Now, one of these 2 positions, either legs straight or knees bent in some way, is going to feel better for your back. Which one do you think it is, Melissa? You probably know.
At the bent knee.
Absolutely. 99.9% of people will say, oh, my back feels so much better when my knees are bent. And you'll also notice that your back is flatter to the ground.
Mhm.
So you might conclude, oh, my back needs to be flatter in order for me to feel better. That's only part of the truth. So let's now stand up and listen to the next 5 minutes on this podcast. And so if you're standing more than maybe a couple minutes, you're going to notice that your knees start to lock backwards. All right.
100%.
And this is an energy conservation move, because when your knees are locked backwards, now you don't have to use your muscles to stand. You're now standing on your joints. Are you doing that right now?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. All right. So this is great. So now what I want you to do is now unlock your knees just a little bit and feel what just happened to your low back. And if you're not sure, lock the knees one more time, and you'll feel that when your knees are locked, your back is arching more.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what have we figured out? Well, we figured out that your back doesn't feel good when it's more arched. That was our first test. Then we figured out that when you stand anytime more than a minute or two, you tend to lock your knees, which then arches your back. So this is how a behavior that you're doing unconsciously is contributing to your back pain chronically. And so it's not only standing though, it's also walking. The real problem is that most people tend to walk with their knees locked. And so what they do is they're stepping forward and they get a heel strike on the ground, which then immediately causes the knee to lock backwards, which then turns off key pelvic and lower body musculature and causes the pelvis to arch forward excessively, contributing to the back arching, which is contributing to your pain. So this is how your unconscious movement habits are contributing to your pain. And the thing is that those movement habits feel natural to you. And if you change them, it's going to feel unnatural. And so your brain judges that change as wrong. But it's not wrong. It's just different. You don't know yet whether it's wrong or not. Does that make sense?
Totally. So I'm a huge proponent for walking, and I am a huge walker myself. I'm pretty proud of my steps I get every day. And it's fascinating to me when you were talking about the walking, because I am sure what you showed for an example, I do. I am very, I did scoliosis. I haven't literally had it checked in years to know if I still have it. I do have a huge, it's kyphosis, right? The rounding in or is that lordosis? Kyphosis?
Kyphosis is the thoracic spine that rounds too much, and lordosis is the lumbar spine that arches in too much.
Yeah. Okay. So the kypho, but my mom used to call me bubble butt because the way I stand, I stick, I push my belly out and I stick my booty out. And I notice when I walk that I really do that too. But even just what you said, for me, it's just pulling in the core that, I'm kind of known for I have a 6-pack abs. And I think that's totally because I pull everything. I live in a state of a compressed core to try to support, and this is probably totally wrong, Rick, to support my lower back because I do over time start to feel that low back pain. But just this, I stand a lot, and how quickly I realized I locked my knees. And now when I walk, I'm going to pay special attention to that heel strike. And if I really straighten out that leg, so you suggest always keeping a soft bend in that knee when you walk?
Absolutely. And so I don't want to pick on you, but you're absolutely correct that tightening your core is an unnatural solution to this problem.
Right.
Because that requires conscious effort on your part.
It does.
And so if you get distracted and lose that core contraction, now your back is unstable because you're distracted, right?
Right.
And also what that is doing is it's increasing compression and tension in the spinal area. You can just draw your belly button in and you'll feel tension increase.
Mm-hmm.
So what you've done is you've magnified the pattern of problems that's causing your back pain by contracting your core in that way.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Intuitively, we feel, oh, it's stabilizing my back, but you can feel, if you really pay attention, it's actually increasing your pain a little bit to contract your stomach even harder, right? Yeah. So the natural solution is to unlock the knees. And what that does is it transfers the load to your thigh muscles, which are huge, right? We've got huge thigh muscles. That then turns on other key musculature in your lower body and pelvis. So your back can relax now. The tension in your back is due to how you're unlocking the knees. And then you don't have to contract your core at all. Now you've put everything in proper alignment and you don't need to contract other things.
Just 5 minutes of standing here with my knees bent instead of straight, I feel so much better.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? It's just so powerful. So you talking about scoliosis. So okay, so this is a great segue if you don't mind, because we've just talked about the first primary pattern of the 3 that have been discovered that cause almost all pain, right? That's called an extension problem, which means that your back is too arched. The second one you just touched on with your scoliosis, which I call a side bending problem. All right. And what scoliosis can be congenital, which means that you're born with it. And usually if it's congenital, you have an S curve in your spine, a lateral S curve, but it can also be functional, meaning that you just have a C curve in your spine because of how your body has adapted over from usage. Scoliosis medically only means a lateral curve. So if you have an X-ray that says scoliosis, it doesn't mean it's congenital scoliosis. It could be a functional scoliosis too. And if it's either way, you can solve both of those. All right. So let's say it's a functional scoliosis. All right. And typically with a functional scoliosis is that you'll see one side of the pelvis that's higher, and you'll see the same side rib cage that's lower. And I call this a side bending problem. All right. And you can imagine, folks, if you're watching this if you're just listening to this, I'll try and describe it, but watching it on YouTube would be, more meaningful maybe. But I'm putting one side of the pelvis high and the other side of the rib cage low, which is then creating compression on that side of the spine. All right. So this pattern is what causes unilateral back pain on one side of the body, or sciatic pain, or SI joint pain, or hip issues, that type of stuff. All right, unilateral things. And so this pattern is occurring usually in 80 to 90% of the cases because of some older problem in the same leg as the pelvis that's higher. And so what your brain is trying to do is get you off of that problem. Because during the day, you're taking your 10,000 steps and your goal is, I'm going to get in my 10,000 steps. But your goal is not, how am I going to get in those 10,000 steps? How is my body doing that?
Right.
Your brain is taking care of that for you. And it's saying, oh, you've got a little something going on here in this leg. So I'm just going to lift up this pelvis to get off of that a little bit for you. And then you can do your 10,000 steps. Well, the same muscles that are lifting the pelvis attach to the rib cage. And so it then pulls the rib cage down. And that creates this compression. And then you have adaptive weakening and tightening of various muscles in the pelvis and leg to accommodate that pattern. All right. So in 80 to 90% of the cases, it's due to the same problem in the same leg. In 10 to 20% of the cases, it's a compensation pattern for the other side of your body.
Gotcha. It's funny for me, I had a skin graft under my right arm. And so as I was 8 years old and they put me in a cast like this for, I think it was 8 weeks. And so it shifted me, causing that curvature. But even today, when I take a picture straight on, and you've got that line that goes down your belly, I can tell that it's not straight. So is there any, what do you do about that?
Yes.
So you've got that imbalance. Is it exercises?
Yeah, so that imbalance is there because of tightnesses or weaknesses that have set up in your body that are reinforcing that pattern. Okay. Yeah. So this is why one of the reasons why congenital scoliosis becomes worse with age is because it sets up a pattern of usage that then deepens the pattern of scoliosis. If we change our usage, that changes the pattern. Okay. So when you have your arm out like this and your body has shifted over like that over your pelvis, your body has adapted to that behavior and it hasn't been taught how to restore itself back to an aligned issue. So weaknesses and tightnesses have set up, and so you can likely solve that if you just know what those are. Most of the exercises in my home programs can probably solve that for you.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
What it requires is your attention to how you're doing the exercise, though. And that's the thing that we have a hard time with in our society, is that we're so distracted. Our focus is doing the 15 reps rather than how we're doing the 15 reps. And that's where the gold is.
Yes. I have an accountability group where we're exercising right now, and the exercises, the video that we did, the trainer had you move very, very slow. And so many of my girls in this group kept saying, it was too slow for me. I couldn't go that slow. And I'm like, you have no idea how good it is for you to move through a weight-bearing exercise that slow, because we just, like you said, just want to rush through it and not pay any attention to the fact that, are your knees locked, which I will always pay attention to now. But also, you know, that mind-muscle connection is obviously very big, especially when you're trying to, you know, adjust things that are a little bit out of whack.
Can I take you through an exercise that will help you start to correct this in yourself? Would you like to see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
it's very, very simple. So is it possible for you, can I still hear you if you back away from your camera a little bit so I can see you?
We'll try.
Okay. Okay, great. That's perfect. All right. So what I'd like you to do is just stand on one leg and just lift the other foot off the ground by maybe 1/4 of an inch. Not a huge thing. All right. Now do it on the other side. Do you see how you've done that differently from one side to the other? When you stand on your right leg, you see how much shifting you're doing to the right? Now stand on your left leg, very little shifting. All right. So what this means is that your right side does not have the stability to stand on one leg unless your trunk is shifting over the pelvis to help you. So an easy way to try and fix this is put your right hand on your head. Now stand on the right leg.
All right. You can ask me to get on my feet again.
Yeah, so we'll get you on your feet, and you're gonna shift your weight to your right leg and just lift up your left foot 1/4 of an inch. And if you can see yourself in your monitor, you'll see that your right shoulder moves far to the outside of your body. And if you shift your weight over to the left leg, you'll see that the left shoulder does not do that. It kind of stays in more alignment with your body. It's subtle, and you're not a huge, I see this in a big way in a lot of people, but hopefully you can feel it or see it. Okay, so now our goal to stop this would be to put your hand on your head and shift over to the right leg. And what this will help you do, all right, and now let's try and raise your hand up over your head this time. Really reach up there. All right, and you'll find that it's hard to hold that position with the arm up over your head, because what that's doing is slightly preventing the trunk from shifting to the right. Therefore, your hip has to stabilize more. All right. And then on your left side, you don't have to do that, but you can if you want to. You'll notice that it's almost effortless for you to be on that left side and stay in good alignment. All right. So this would be how I would start to fix this pattern in you, because it's the trunk shifting over your pelvis, but it's not your trunk's fault. It's the pelvis's inability to stabilize. That's the problem. And if you can just bring your attention to that, you can solve that.
That's crazy. And I felt it. I just feel so much less stable on that right side. It's crazy. And that brings me to a point of listening to you on a different podcast. You were talking about the pelvis and the femurs and the thigh bones, and how in women they kind of tilt inward, and in men they outward. And the thing that really caught my eye is the importance of women understanding that they really do need strong muscles, because you had mentioned something about, you know, the glute muscles needing to be really strong to kind of help compensate for that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. But before we get there, I just wanted to point out one more thing. Because your right hip is weaker, you will tend to lock your right knee more to help you stabilize that leg. And
Okay.
then we just found out that locking the knee causes the arching. And therefore the arching will happen more on the right side of your spine than the left. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So this is where the asymmetry comes in.
Yeah.
Okay, now what you're talking about with that is this idea of femoral anteversion and retroversion, which are scary sounding names, but basically it just means that the thigh bone, we're all born with different shaped thigh bones. We can have thigh bones that are rotated out, which is called retroversion. And men typically have this problem. And then females typically have the opposite. They have a thigh bone that's rotated inward or twisted inward, and that's called femoral anteversion. So if it's twisting inward, that means that everything likes to rotate in and follow it. That's called internal rotation. And our hip joint and our knee joints don't like internal rotation because that increases compression in those joints, and we start to damage tissues and so forth in those joints because of it. So the thing that is causing, so if you have femoral anteversion, now I can take you through a test to determine whether you have this or not. It's very simple. But basically the thing that controls the thigh bone is the butt. And the butt starts here at the sacrum in the back of the pelvis, and it inserts into the top of the thigh bone. And its job is to decelerate that internal rotation. So if you are standing and walking with locked knees, like we talked about at the beginning, you are turning off your butt muscles. And therefore your thigh muscles, your thigh bones will rotate inward excessively, breaking down the hip joint and the knee joint. So this is how it all links together.
So I, as someone that's been in the fitness industry for 25 plus years, for me, and my audience is women, and I know every woman listening right now, one of their goals is to build glute muscles, aesthetically, but also for that strength. And it's so funny that you say that, because here recently I've really noticed that, like, when I go for my very long extensive walks, there's no glute engagement whatsoever. I mean, there's zero. And so I've been trying, and maybe you can help us today. I really don't know how to engage the glute.
I can tell you.
I squeeze it, and I'm like, is that what I'm supposed to do? I feel like I said, I tighten my core, I tuck my pelvis under, and I try to squeeze my glute when I walk, because then at least I feel it, but I'm sure that's wrong.
Yeah. It's just unnatural, right? Again, if you get distracted, now your glutes are turned off. It makes more sense to just fix how you walk,
Yes.
right? Which will then become a habit that will turn it on naturally. So I can show you how to do that if you like.
Yes, please.
Okay. And all of you folks listening, you can do this at home. This is another test to determine whether your glutes are turning on or not, and then how to fix it. So put your hand in the center of your butt muscles so that your fingertips are right in the meat of the butt, right there. Not at the top of the pelvis, not at the bottom of the pelvis, but right in the center. All right, you got it? Okay, now pinch both of your butt cheeks together, and you'll feel that that's a maximum gluteal contraction. You feel that? Okay, now relax them. And now keep the fingers right there and walk around the room for like 10 steps.
I'm going.
Let me know. Yeah. Let me know if you feel any of that gluteal contraction while you're walking. No. No. And I know this because I can already see that you're locking your knees, right? Which is turning them off. So here's an easy way to solve this. Go up on your tippy toes, keeping your fingers on your butt muscles, and now walk around on your tippy toes for a little bit. And you'll feel that there is a contraction happening underneath your fingertips, maybe 5 or 10% of that maximal contraction that you created first. Do you feel that? That's what your butt should be doing naturally when you're walking.
Okay.
All right, so continue walking around on your tippy toes, and then in about 5 steps, start to lower your heels back down, and you'll notice that your butt stays turned on now. You feel that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you would do this throughout your walks. Periodically check on your butt, see if it's turned on. If it's not, go up on your tippy toes for a few steps, come back down, which will turn it on, and you can continue walking. And then your goal will be to create longer distances before your butt turns off during your walking, right?
Yeah.
So,
So
what is it about this walking on your tiptoes that turns on the butt that your normal walking doesn't? What's happening, do you think?
that's what I was going to ask, is trying to be a student right now. I'm thinking it's because the tiptoes keep you from locking your knees out, but I'm not sure.
You're absolutely right. There's two things happening that are critical here. One is that you're absolutely right. It's impossible to lock your knees when you're tiptoe walking, right? You can try, it's just impossible. All right. Now, the second thing that's going on, we kind of touched on this a little while ago, is that your normal walking pattern is that your foot is landing out in front of you and your body is behind the foot, which then causes the knee to lock. So you'll notice on tiptoe walking that that pattern is impossible to do. Instead, when your foot comes out in front of you, your whole body is with that foot. And you land with your body over the foot at foot strike, which then also causes the knee to unlock. So that's what the tiptoe walking is doing, is breaking the habit of the foot coming out in front of your body, in which case it turns off all the key musculature in your low back and pelvis. And instead, it's bringing your body along with the foot to strike.
Okay, so this is kind of a woman epiphany. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but when us women love to wear heels because it makes the booty look better. Is that because you are on your toes and you are naturally using the glutes more, flexing the glutes more, that as opposed to wearing sneakers, they're more engaged? And I know you're probably sitting here saying, please don't tell women to wear heels. They're terrible. But is that why? Because you're literally on your toes when you're in heels.
Yeah, this is a great question. In fact, it's so funny, Melissa, because this came up in one of my patient calls last night. I was with a group of patients and someone asked that very question because I went through this example. And the answer is, I would hate to say it, but you're probably right. Walking in high heels might help turn on the glutes more than they would if your heels were down. But there are other repercussions to walking in heels also for that lower body. So I think what I need to do is do some research and see if anyone's done any studies on gluteal activation with high heels on. And I think that would be a really interesting thing to do.
That would be.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And that's so simple to do.
Very simple.
Like in just the act of literally putting your fingers on your glutes several times when you're walking also brings you back to, and like you said, I'm sure it will become a habit, because for me, the clenching of the core for me that I've done because of my sway back, I've done for decades. It's really hard for me to stand there without having a flexed core, because it does become, and it's not serving me. But if you do things like this that actually do serve you, eventually they will become second nature to you, and that pain will lessen because of that, correct?
Absolutely correct. And it doesn't take it that long. Here's the beautiful thing, is that usually within a week to 2 weeks, people have mastered this change in their habits.
That's easy.
And one of the reasons is because they understand now that this habit is causing their pain. So now they have the motivation to change it, right? They've identified the problem. Now they're going to change it, and they feel better because of it. Unlike a lot of other habits that people ask you to change that don't make any meaningful difference in your life, because they're not really solving the mechanical issues that are causing your pain in the first place. So
I was gonna say, I can't imagine how many heads your voice is in in a very positive way. You're obviously an excellent teacher, but just those very simple but doable things on a daily basis can help in such a profound way with the chronic pain. So I think, did we touch on 2 of the 3 things, or did
we touched on 2 of the 3? Now the third is a very rare pattern that I see in less than 1%. So I'd hate to devote time to it.
Okay.
But I will if you want to. But what I really like to talk about now is this idea of changing habits, since you brought this up, and the process of how that works in our brains. All right. So here's yet another experiment that people can do. All right, this is another important one.
8-hour abs. That sounds like a dream, right? What if I told you you could work on those abs while you dream? It's not too good to be true, I promise. It's something I discovered almost accidentally that gives you incredible results with minimal effort. The idea behind this is actually in what you're not doing. By giving your digestion time to rest, you allow your body to tap into its fat stores, hence working on that six-pack while you sleep. All you have to do is eat within an 8-hour window and leave the rest up to your body. I wrote the 8-hour abs diet back in 2014 to help people learn about the importance of meal timing. Intermittent fasting has been a huge part in helping me stay in the shape that I am. For me, intermittent fasting means eating in an 8-hour window, and I'll give you my insight on it in this free ebook. With proper meal timing, you will not only look better, but you're going to feel better too. So learn more by visiting melissamadeonline.com/ebooks and get your free copy of the 8-hour abs diet today.
Clasp your fingers together as if you're praying. All right. Now look down and see which thumb is on top. Which one is yours?
My right one.
Your right one. Okay. Now without looking, unclasp your fingers and reclasp them with the opposite thumb on top. Doesn't that feel weird? Many people listening may have even looked down to make sure that the opposite thumb is on top. Okay, now keep your fingers like this. So we're clasping our fingers in a way that's different than what we're used to. I want you to pay attention to what your brain is telling you. Your brain is sending an alert that something has changed, right? And then there's another part of your brain that's judging that change as wrong. This is wrong. This is bad. Something weird is happening and I don't like it. But those are two different messages because your brain doesn't know whether this is a good thing for you yet or a bad thing for you yet. And so what we have to do is when we're changing a habit like walking or posture strategy and things like that, we are going to be getting these messages that says, this is weird and wrong. I don't like this. Half of that message is correct. It is different, but it's not necessarily wrong. Your brain doesn't know what's right for you yet until your body tells it what's right for it. And that's what changing the habit process is going to be like. You just have to do it, even though your brain says, I don't like this and something's wrong here. Because when your body starts experiencing less pain from it, then your brain's going to say, oh, there's that change again. I like that. Right.
Yeah.
And so then it's going to start warning you when it's not feeling something different. And that's how it is to change bad habits.
I love that. You can use that in many different scenarios in your life. And just that simple hand thing is mind blowing. When you go to like hold somebody's hand too, you're just like, you love holding somebody's hand because it's, it feels good. But at the same time, if it's not the way that you would normally, it's just awkward. You want to switch it so bad.
Yes. Yeah.
Can we talk, literally pick your brain? Obviously there's very common chronic pain that people go through, maybe the neck and shoulders, obviously the lower back, sciatic pain, the plantar fasciitis. I had that a couple decades ago, horrible. Any, bits of advice from my audience on maybe understanding what's causing those pain and what they could do to help, lessen it or even alleviate it?
Oh gosh, it's such a big topic. So what we've covered so far are two of the common patterns that cause almost all back and sciatic pain. And what we've also understood now is that our walking pattern is fundamental to changing the stressors that have been set up in our body that are causing this pain. All right. And it doesn't matter whether, we could have just as easily talked about hip pain or knee pain. They're all caused by the same patterns of problems that are common in people, such as walking incorrectly. And so anyone in our clinic with anything from back pain down to plantar fasciitis, everyone learned how to walk better.
Okay.
All right. You can't escape it.
Yeah.
So the upper body system is a different type of system though than our lower body system. And so this is going to go into your posture, neck pain, shoulders, and headaches. So do you mind if we go to that system now?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, because through this, I'm going to show you how a better postural strategy than people have been taught.
I was going to ask you that. I'm glad you brought that up, is because people sit a lot.
Yeah. So if you all look at Google a skeleton on Google, you'll see that most of the bones are these long bones in the body. All right, long bones everywhere. Okay. There are two areas of the body, however, that don't have long bones. One is the pelvis, which has a broad, flat bone. We all know that the pelvis is the center of function for our lower body mechanics and our spine. The second area is our shoulder blade. That also is the center of function for our upper body system, neck and head. All right. There are rules about how the shoulder blade should be resting and moving. I won't go into all those rules unless you want to, but these are important because there are significant muscular attachments from the shoulder blade into the neck bones and the base of the skull. So if there is dysfunction in the shoulder blade, it's transmitted via these muscles into the neck and the base of the skull. Almost everyone listening to me right now who has suffered from chronic neck pain and headaches, none of their practitioners have ever looked at their shoulder blades as the source of their pain. And this is why they're suffering from chronic neck pains and headaches. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a simple test to determine if this is the cause of your chronic neck pain and headaches. All right. Really easy. You'll need a partner, but this will be a really simple test to do. I call it the armpit test. All right. So let's say you're the one with chronic neck pain or headaches. What you want to do is you want to look left, look right, look up, look down, and get a sense of where the restrictions of your range of motion and your pain involved with those movements. Then you're going to have someone stand behind you, and they're going to put their hands in your armpits and lift up your shoulders about a ½ inch to an inch higher than normal. And then they're going to jiggle those around slowly. And your job is to relax your shoulders into their hands. You have to be able to let those go. And that's why they're kind of jiggling them around a little bit. All right. So let's say that you've been doing this for now 30 seconds or a minute. Then what you're going to do is you're going to turn your head left or right again and look up and down and see whether your range of motion has improved or pain has decreased. All right. And in probably almost all cases, it will. Now, there are some people, let's say you could turn your head 40 degrees before you had pain. What will often happen is people will say, they'll turn their head 90 degrees and they'll say, oh, I still have the pain. Yes, but you just turned 40 more degrees. Yep. And they're like, really? I'll say, yeah, go ahead and do it. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. You know, so a lot of people aren't aware of the decrease that they're experiencing. Okay. Now, the other subset of people are the people who carry a lot of tension here, have a difficult time relaxing their shoulders into someone else's hands. All right. So also be aware of that. So the second part of this test, let's say you've done that test and you experience, a decrease in your pain. The second part of the test is that you have that person now take their hands out of your shoulder blades, your shoulders come back down. And usually those people who didn't experience a change in their pain will now experience more pain in their neck and head because the weight of their upper body complex has just been placed back on their neck and their head, and they don't like it. They just weren't aware that it was gone when it was raised. So this is a really simple test to determine whether your shoulder blades are the cause of your chronic pain. And to be honest, in the last 20 years, I can't remember the last person with chronic neck pain or headaches that it wasn't their shoulder blade system. So that's the problem.
Is that in a nutshell? What is your goal? Is to just literally learn to relax, or are you going to be working to strengthen muscles to help support the scapula better? What do you do to fix the fact that it is that area? Right
on. So this is where posture comes in. So if this helps your neck pain and headaches, what's that telling us? Well, if lifting up the shoulder blade helps your neck pain and headaches, that means that the shoulder blade is then resting too low.
Okay.
Or there are too many forces trying to pull it down. Why might this be happening? Well, if any of you have ever been to a yoga or Pilates or dance or gymnastics class, what is one of the most common cues that are given is to bring your shoulder blades down and back into your opposite back pockets. That is disrupting the whole scapular mechanics here, right? And we do that because we think that that's creating good posture for us.
Totally.
And it's not.
Okay.
It's destroying good posture. Because what you're teaching, just like tightening your stomach or squeezing your butt muscles, you're creating an artificial way of constructing your posture. Okay? So once we stop doing that and allow the shoulder blades to relax, then they'll stop being depressed and tugging on your neck and head. All right? So how should we create good posture? So here's how a better way of creating good posture. You can do this right now if you want. We're going to put one hand up on your chest and the other hand on your belly. Take a nice deep breath in, and you'll feel that your chest rises as you breathe in, and then it'll lower as you exhale. Can you feel that? Okay, good. So inhale again, feel your chest rise. This time when you exhale, you can exhale all the way, but don't let the chest lower all the way. It can lower 99% of the way, but not that last 1%. So you're gonna hold it up just a tiny little bit. And what you'll notice when you do that is that your stomach muscles have just engaged ever so slightly. Can you feel that? That is your core muscles holding up your posture. We have massive core muscles and many layers deep. That's why we have so many, because this upper body system is heavy and it needs to be able to hold it up. But you'll probably just feel like a 5% engagement of that. It doesn't take a lot to hold that rib cage up like this. So the second part of this equation then is to bring the arms down by your side and now roll the shoulders around to completely relax your shoulders and get those out of the equation. Your arms should be like two loose ropes dangling from your sides. And you'll notice that when you relax your shoulders, you've just lost your core as well.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yep.
it's because you've tied your shoulders to posture rather than core to posture.
Gotcha.
And so this exercise will help you decouple that connection. So notice that the goal is not to contract your stomach though. The stomach contracted because you were holding good posture. You're not holding good posture because the stomach is contracting.
Gotcha.
So it begins with the rib cage position rather than the stomach contraction. The stomach contraction will follow. You don't even have to worry about it. Then the second part is just relaxing the shoulders and get those out of the equation now.
Yeah. Oh, Rick, you would love to see my husband because, I mean, he broke one of his scapula into like a ton of pieces, but he had a 360 fusion on his back and just had foot surgery because he destroyed his foot. But when he walks, his shoulders, it just pains me to watch him walk because one shoulder is so much higher than the other, compensating for the back, which I'm sure he had the foot surgery a year ago and he's still in massive pain. And I'm sure with you, it's because the compensation that is happening in the other, he's got so many different things going on that his foot probably should have healed by now or feel better and not hurt anymore. But because of all the things that he has, the issues going on, it's putting so much tremendous stress on that foot that it's just not allowing it to heal.
Is the foot issue on the same side as the hiked up shoulder?
Gosh, that's a good question.
Let me show you the pattern that typically happens.
Okay.
This is how you connect foot to neck. All right. So remember when we said the side bending pattern occurs, and usually it's occurring because 80 to 90% of the cases it's with a problem with the same side.
Yeah.
So let's assume that this is the side where his foot issue is. Therefore, his pelvis is elevated to compensate and get off that foot. Therefore, the rib cage is depressed because of that elevation of the pelvis. Well, the shoulder blade rests on the rib cage. So if the rib cage is depressed, then the shoulder blade is automatically set up for failure in that depressed position again, which then creates chronic neck pain or headaches, usually on the same side. So Your brain then will often hike the shoulder blade up to level it in its attempts to fix the system.
Yeah.
But that's too late in the equation. It needs to be solved down here where it originates.
Okay.
So then we develop, this musculature becomes super hard and painful because it's an artificial construct of how to correct the problem.
Okay. Ooh. It'd be a good case for you. So I have two more questions for you. Number one, any advice on, I have a lot of clients that sit, all day long, and I see the medicine ball behind you, and I encourage them to get up every hour and of course to move. But is there, for people that are in that position, to help, is there any advice for them to keep from, because you say it's the habits and stuff that people do, so maybe they have a bad habit of sitting that they could be conscious of when they're sitting?
You are so on track with your questions. I'm so impressed. So yes, absolutely. Ergonomics is a huge component, especially if you have neck pain and headaches. So here's what happens. All right. Most people's desks are set up, and when they're typing on it, their elbows are off their chairs, if their chairs even have arms in the first place. All right. So if we did that armpit test and we found out that if my shoulder blades are lifted, my neck feels better, then what we want to do is make our ergonomic setup to reflect that. Okay. So the arms should be at the seam of the shirt, right at the center of your body. And the elbows should be resting about a ½ inch to an inch higher than normal, like what we just discovered on that armpit test. In this position, wherever my hand is where my keyboard should be now. Okay. If my keyboard is any further in front of me, now my shoulder and neck muscles are holding my system up instead of my chair. Even if you're forward and your elbows are resting on the chair, you're still reaching down to the arms of the chair, which is then depressing the shoulders to get there. And many, especially women, are too petite for the arms of the chair to come all the way in. So the solution there is to bring in pillows from your bed, fold them in half and shove them between your body and the arm of the chair. And that will almost be the perfect arm rest for you. You'll find that your arm is not only resting higher, but you have a bigger surface and a cushier surface to rest it on. And it automatically signals your brain, hey, I can let go. I'm supported here. And I can just work right here. Now, if you have a mouse, people who work with mice typically have same side neck pain, shoulder pain, headaches, and it's because of the mouse. So if you do a lot of mouse work, bring the mouse in closer to your body and even move your keyboard over to the other side to bias your work towards the mouse. It should be front and center if that's where most of your work is done. Then your shoulder won't be straining to do that mouse work anymore. I saw the guy's 20 years of neck pain and headaches in one day with this one tip. It solved it completely and forever after that. Yeah. So it's these kinds of things. Once you understand how the body works, Melissa, it's so simple to solve problems. Yeah.
That's neat. If you guys are watching the YouTube video and you watched him, if not, we encourage you to watch this. Just the way you aligned your body just to do something as simple as typing made so much more sense and you never think about that forward reaching, how over time that can create that chronic pain. It's simple, but it's not simple. And it's obviously going to, just like everything else, have to become a habit in order for you to, see, this is what you need to do, Rick, is you need to create chairs for women to have that perfect position. My next question for you, because I do walk on the beach a lot and I'm very conscious of my steps, my actual literal steps. And I walk very, with my feet out. I know some people are pigeon-toed, some are neutral. How does that play a part in, creating imbalances and pain, or is that just natural is it individual with people?
Yeah, so that's actually probably a good thing that you're doing. Okay. Because when you turn your feet out, what you're doing is externally rotating that lower body, right? the butt muscle is an external rotator. So by externally rotating your leg, you are biasing the butt muscle to turn on.
Okay.
All right. And that's why you see a lot of ice skaters, speed skaters, their
Yeah.
legs are moving to the outsides of them because that's engaging more butt muscle fibers. And therefore you're going to be more successful. And actually walking on the beach, do you walk with shoes or without shoes?
Without shoes.
Yeah. So you'll notice that when you walk on the beach, your steps are much smaller and your knees are naturally flexed more.
Yeah.
So all of those conditions are training your butt to turn on better,
Good.
which is then stabilizing your hip and your pelvis and so forth.
Oh, good. I love that. I've just, I recently started walking on the beach, and I do notice a complete difference. And I wear an Oura ring, and I giggled with my girlfriend Kelly the other day, because every time I go for a walk on the beach, it will ask me, it always asks you, did you go walking? It always asks me if I went cycling when I walk the beach, as opposed to walking on the street, because I don't know if there's just some sort of, like you said, where I'm pushing out more, which I don't know why, but every time I walk the beach, it asked me if I was cycling. But if I walk the streets, it never asked me if I'm doing anything other than walking. So the pattern of walking in the sand must be completely different than walking.
Interesting. Do you think it's your cadence or something like that? Do you have a quicker turnover because your steps are shorter?
No, I think I walk pretty slow.
That's
I don't know.
interesting. Yeah.
It is. Every time. And I'm like, I wasn't cycling.
Yeah. I would Google that, whatever
weird.
the algorithm is for that to determine whether you're cycling or walking. That would be really interesting to understand what that element is
Yeah,
that it's picking up on.
When I walk with, like, my girlfriend Kelly, she has an Oura ring too, and she would walk with me. It would never ask her if she was cycling. So it's obviously something that I'm doing, something about, and it's pretty thick sand. It's a good workout. So
yeah,
it's changing the way that I'm walking because of that. So I'm very interested in the video series that you do. Can you kind of talk about those a little bit, how they work? I mean, are they separated by specific pains, or how do you tell me about them?
Yeah. So the Fixing You books that you mentioned during the intro, I wrote those about 10 or 15 years ago before I owned my clinic. And those were designed to solve every possible problem that you would find in your body. But as you might imagine, the back pain book has maybe 80 different types of exercises because I wanted to solve everything. But then I owned my clinic, and I realized, and I learned, because I had such a huge volume of people coming in, that the same patterns of problems were causing pain in people. And the same pattern might cause back pain in you, but might cause sciatic pain in another, SI joint pain in a third, hip pain in another. But it's all the same pattern. And it's just manifesting in different people differently based on their genetics, exercise history, work history, injury history, all sorts of things, right? Can make it set up in your body differently, but it's the same system of problems. And so that's when I realized, oh, I can make this a lot faster and easier for people. And so what I did is I created these home programs that solve these systems of problems so that so it's much quicker, and it's video based. So I basically just take you through everything that you need to do. But like, for instance, to solve back pain, it's like 7 exercises that are getting at the fundamental issues, the fundamental points of pain that are causing most problems with most people. And they do well. So yes, you're right. So to an extent, I don't have a different one for back pain than I do for sciatic pain, because it's all the same system, right, of problems. But I do have a different one for back pain and hip pain, knee pain, foot pain, and then also neck pain and headaches, for sure, because that's a whole different system altogether. And so they work really well to solve pain.
Yeah.
And they include somatics lessons, taping recommendations, and habit corrections. So it's a very comprehensive solution, like what you and I have been talking about. We've talked about all of these things that, if you don't solve the habits that are creating the tight or weak muscles, then their muscles are destined to become tight or weak again.
Yeah.
And some people need that tape to support their body to make that change. That's why I have tape. And you always and then, you know, so it all works together. And we haven't even talked about somatics, which I'm happy to if you want to. But anyway, that's also a really key element to solving chronic pain, are solving these neurological tension patterns that are happening in the body too.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I was going to ask you if there's anything you wanted to share. So can you go into the somatics a little bit? And we will.
Sure. So we talked about Thomas Meyer's fascia superhighways that run through the body from head to toe, and it's connective tissue. But that I won't get into it. I won't geek out too much. All right. So what's happening is, what is activating this fascia tension? It's a neurologically based activation, right? So your brain is in some way activating all of this. So dietary issues, trauma can activate this. But from my standpoint, movement behaviors can activate this line of fascia too. All right. So Thomas Hanna, which is one of the researchers I mentioned who focused on neurological tension patterns in the body at the very beginning of our talk together, he came up with something called Hanna somatics. And Hanna somatics releases tension patterns along this whole fascial line and all of these lines. Remember, they all found the same patterns of issues causing pain. His approach was to solve neurologically based tension patterns. So my programs, what I found is that people with chronic pain, if they don't solve the neurological tension pattern, it's going to keep recharging their body to come back and reproduce that pattern again and again and again. And so I've created somatics audio lessons within each of the programs. There are 8 of them. Each lesson solves a tension pattern that's manifesting differently in your body. And so I have you take this little pain test. And if your score is 21 or greater, you should start with the somatics first to unlock this tension pattern. Okay. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time stretching and strengthening, because the neurological tension will override all of those changes.
Yeah.
So that's how the somatics works in my program.
And that's so relatable to me, because, you know, I will have people that want to lose weight, but sometimes we have to get to the gut. You know, there's some gut dysfunction first, but all they think about is, you know, like, let me do the exercises first, or, you know, you tell me how to what muscles to strengthen to fix my chronic pain, when there's things that you need to start with, you probably wouldn't think are the reason that you're having that pain. I totally can relate to that.
Bigger picture problems.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Like I said, before we pushed record, so many questions. I have another question for you that came out of the blue. We talked about, and this is working because I keep unlocking my knees.
Good for you.
I do. I mean, if you watch the video, and actually if you like put on fast forward, you're probably watching my head bob up and down, because I'm constantly realizing that I'm locking my knees, and I start to feel that tension in my low back, and I'm like, unlock the knees. So we talked about standing, we talked about walking and sitting. That has been extremely helpful. Last but not least, and I remember you mentioning this with your knees, you know, and mattresses and stuff. When you sleep, do you have any suggestions for people that do have chronic pain, or, you know, they're young and they're taking for granted that they have no pain yet? Maybe patterns of the way that they sleep now could cause these chronic, you know, pains in the future. Anything that you see that can cause it and also help alleviate it?
Yes, it's a really good point. But before I get there, I want to talk about your knee locking, because this links emotional issues with chronic pain.
Okay.
So knee locking often happens when we are trying to be hyper alert and engaged.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's tapping into an older reflex pattern in our body, which helps us stand up tall in cases of danger. Right? So that whole pattern is arching your back and locking your knees together. That's one of the reasons why you may be locking your knees now, is because you're like a high energy, alert person, right? Especially during our interview, you want to be on top of everything.
Yeah.
And so your knees are locking to help you be more alert. And so that's how your psychological patterns can contribute to one of these patterns of issues causing chronic pain too. All right. So my recommendation is also, you found that you keep slipping back to locking your knees. So what I tell people to do is wear your watch on the opposite wrist.
Okay.
And when you do that, it's going to annoy you to no end. And it will be your reminder that every time you notice that, are my knees locked or are they unlocked? You're going to attach a change in your behavior to your noticing that ring that you just changed to a different finger. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So
And
you'll
that's,
need external reminders initially to keep you on track.
I tell my clients all the time, that's almost like it is, but it isn't. Habit stacking, like if they forget to drink their water every single morning, put that water by your toothbrush or put that water by your coffee pot, because you'll see the water and you'll remember. So this is very awkward for me to wear this Oura ring on the opposite finger, but I'm going to try it.
All right, great. Okay, I was looking for my pillow. Oh, great. Here they are. So we're gonna talk about sleep now.
Okay.
Okay. So sleeping patterns. So if you have, it all depends on that pattern that you have, right? That we tested, these 2 tests that we did. If you have an extension pattern, well, naturally, if you sleep on your back and your legs are straight, it's going to contribute to more arching in your back, like we just talked about, right? So of course, putting a pillow underneath your knees will help. So the degree of bend that you need in your knees in order for your back to feel better directly corresponds to the degree of issues that are trying to pull your back into an arch.
Okay.
We haven't even talked about the muscles that are doing this. We've just talked about the behaviors today. So if you can get away with your knees just bending this much to relieve your back pain, then your problem is a little shallower and not as deep as someone who needs their knees to be way up here in order for the back to feel better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So whatever that degree is where how much pillow you should put underneath your knees if you're a back sleeper.
Okay.
Okay. Now, we talked about side bending problems, right? Where one side of the pelvis is higher and the rib cage is lower. So if you have this kind of problem and you're a side sleeper, typically the 2 widest points on your body are the pelvis and the shoulder. And so if you can imagine one of those electrical power lines between 2 poles, the power line droops down and comes back up to the next pole. That's your spine.
Yeah.
Okay. So what it does is it puts more pressure on the hip and the shoulder when you sleep on your side. I never ask people to sleep differently. Whatever positions they sleep in is the position I want them in. We just teach them how to do it without pain. So an easy way to solve this problem is to just simply put a pillow underneath your rib cage, which will then unload the shoulder and the hip joint and support the spine so it's not drooping down. This will help alleviate a lot of shoulder pain, hip pain, and side bending pain like sciatica associated with this type of sleeping posture. Does that make sense?
Total sense.
All right. And then the last posture that a lot of people sleep in is stomach sleepers. And they've been told by all the therapists never to sleep on your stomach, right? Well, on the surface of things, that's good advice. But the simple solution is if you don't sleep how you've grown up sleeping, then you're not going to sleep well. So what if we just put a pillow underneath your chest here, right? Which will raise the chest off. And what it will do is it'll allow the hip joints to flex and therefore remove the extension stress to the low spine. This is also good for neck pain because without the pillow, your head has to turn fairly severely to get off of your head. But when you have a pillow underneath your chest, now it gives the neck more degrees of freedom to not have to turn so severely and eases a lot of neck pain too.
Okay. I'm
Did
going
we
to
get
try
all
some.
of that?
Yeah, I'm going to definitely. Definitely. But do you have, I mean, I noticed you used a foam, if that was just an example, or is that the kind of pillow versus like a feather pillow or a cotton pillow?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what kind of pillow. So yes, I was using these foam squares I cut out. You can get these at any fabric store. And as a therapist, what I do in the clinic is it's a lot like going to an optometrist. Does 1 feel better or 2? Does 3 feel better or 2? So these allow for small, subtle changes to be experimented with rather than big fluffy pillows. Big fluffy pillow might be too much of a change. You might need just a little nudge rather than a huge nudge. So yeah. I would think about using towels or small pillows to figure out what you need.
Okay. And again, just real quick, with my scoliosis that I had, the doctors always told my mom to give me a firm mattress. Is that something that you would agree more toward, is having a firmer mattress versus a soft one?
Not necessarily. And this, again, so many of your questions are triggering other concepts. So so the mattress isn't so important as the body that's going to bed.
Okay.
Right? I always say fix the body and you don't have to worry about the mattress so much.
Okay.
So the other interesting thing about scoliosis, especially congenital scoliosis, which is the one with the S curve, is that what it does is it tends to lock the body into an extension pattern. This is one of the reasons why, you said you were called a bubble butt,
Yep.
Younger, is because the scoliosis is driving an extension pattern. So the focus in medicine has been we've got to solve the scoliosis, but really you can get away with not solving scoliosis if you solve the extension pattern instead, because that's the thing that's actually causing your back pain. The scoliosis is a driver of it, when you can solve a lot of that, but the pain is actually because of the extension pattern.
Okay. Makes sense. Total sense. Oh, I'm riled up. This is such good work you're doing. When I do assessments with my clients, and chronic pain is a very, very, very common topic, and they're clueless, and I have to be honest, Rick, my husband is very reluctant to go to physical therapy because he's got too much to do, number one. And then he just wants to go and for them to tell him what exercises to do so that he can come and do them at home. He never does that. But if it's something as simple as like what you said with the pillows, him starting with the pillows, and I'm exactly what you said with the shoulder dropping up, and the elevated with the knee. As you were saying that, I was visualizing him walking away from me, and you nailed it. So I personally am going to invest in your videos and make that my mission to, not only help myself because of the walking issues that I have, but also my husband. And so I just wanted to thank you for your time today and for all the work that you've done over the last several decades to really understand how the body works and to get past the simple thought of, okay, I've got a muscle imbalance. That's it. I've got to strengthen a muscle. It's so much deeper than that, but it's simple and it's not scary. And it sounds like it doesn't take a lot of time. And it also sounds like it's, for lack of a better word, it's just something that you could implement almost immediately and be able to help yourself, and then to be able to share it with other people too, because you can't sit at a table without someone, talking about lower back pain or neck pain or knee pain, or so it's something that you can work on for yourself, but to be able to spread the word of, you don't have to live with this pain and you don't have to be on your medications. I was going to ask you about that. For people that do have the chronic pain, obviously, you and I both neither want people living on NSAIDs and pain relievers, but is there any natural pain relief while people are fixing this, or do you do that, the heat and ice or compression? Is there anything to help with the pain while they're trying to alleviate the pain over time?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So a lot of people feel that there's a medical conspiracy to issue a lot of pain meds or conduct surgeries, things like that. I have never met a doctor who wants people to be on pain meds.
Yeah.
So the way it works is that you have pain, you go to your doctor sends you to physical therapy or chiropractic or massage or acupuncture or whatever, and it fails. And then you come back and hey, my pain hasn't changed. Okay, here's some pain meds. So it's often the last thing. And the reason is because we are failing that patient in conservative care. The patient doesn't want to be on pain meds and the doctor doesn't want them to be on pain meds or have surgery. So surgery and pain meds are the last resort that are given to us in our medical system. So to answer your question, solve the pain, and then you don't need pain meds. And just like you're finding with unlocking these knees, immediately your back felt so much better, right? And I can almost guarantee if the folks listening with back pain today unlock their knees for the next 3 days, they'll notice a significant reduction in their back pain almost immediately. And this is a function of your body having all the internal mechanisms to heal itself, right? What you're doing is eliminating a barrier to that by unlocking your knees. And that's how quickly pain can go away. I had a woman, she was a Division I swimmer with a scholarship, had to abandon her scholarship because she developed back pain from swimming during her college career. 15 years later, she walks into my clinic and she's not even seeing me for back pain. She doesn't believe that anyone can solve it. And she's coming in for plantar fasciitis in both feet. She was in so much pain, I couldn't even evaluate her. She would literally have to wait 30 seconds to a minute, just changing, sitting from standing or standing from sitting, because she was in so much pain. Fortunately, I know how everything is linked in the body. And I put on 2 little pieces of tape on the backs of her knees to get her to stop locking her knees. 3 days later, she's 75% better in both her plantar fasciitis and her back pain. So this is how quickly the body will resolve its pain. Pain is the signal that something is wrong now. Fix it now, and your pain will go away now.
Jeez, that's profound. That's profound. And I literally sitting here, grabbed my hand, felt my ring, unlocked my knees. So I'm very excited to try this. And again, thank you so much. This is probably the first out of the many podcasts that I've done, that especially a longer one, that I can 100% tell you that I'm not feeling that tension in my lower back from standing here for the, the hour and 15, 30 minutes that we've been together the very first time. So even something as simple as just taking someone through those exercises and showing them, it's just a tiny habit that you have to change, has been profound for me. So I'm very excited for my following to hear this. Can you please share with everybody where they can find you, to find the videos, to get the book, to get more of your teachings?
Sure. You can go to rickolderman.com. That's older man, the opposite of younger woman. And there are all of my home programs and my Solving the Pain Puzzle book. I think there's a link to the publisher there, but you can find this on Amazon too. Okay. And then I have also created a practitioner course, online training course, to teach anyone from coaches to surgeons how to understand the body from this point of view. And for physical therapists out there, I offer significant CEU credits for in just about, I think, every state in the country to learn this method of solving pain. It will help your outcomes. You will, and frankly, Melissa, the way I think about it is, physical therapists are the last people that people in pain come to, right? So they come to people like you, personal trainers, yoga, Pilates, coaches, right? And they ask you, what do you think? And I think we could get rid of chronic pain if everyone at the very front of this line knew how the body worked and solved it right then and there. And then I would love to be put out of work, because there's no one left with chronic pain in the world. Yeah. So I feel it really starts, anyone who teaches movement or anything to do with the body should understand how the body really works, and you will help so many people. So that I've created this practitioner course, not just for physical therapists, but for everyone, for that reason.
Fantastic. Where are you located?
I'm in Denver.
Oh, that's right. And do you do virtual?
Yes, I do. I do virtual sessions with people, but frankly, I always try to steer people to my home programs, because literally I can't remember the last time I had a virtual session and I didn't give the exact same stuff that's already in my programs. So, and a virtual session is a little more expensive with me. It's a lot cheaper just to get the program and follow it, and you will likely solve your pain.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all that I have. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a little bit different than what, obviously we talk a lot about nutrition online, but this is absolutely huge to people's overall well-being, living a happy life, And for me personally, and for my, I tried to cuss less on my podcast. My messed up husband, we'll just say that, my messed up husband, I've learned invaluable things from you. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be on this podcast. And I'm very excited for my listeners to learn more about you and to be able to go through all your teachings to live with less pain. So thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate your time and attention.
You betcha. All right, you guys, as always, I hope that you wake up feeling prepared and you go to bed feeling proud. Have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.